Hello, everybody, and welcome to Kata School Cascadia's Friday Zooms. I am Tracy Defoe, and I'm going to share with you a short presentation that I gave at Kata Together in July, which I hope is thought-provoking for you. And it's a presentation that I prefaced by saying, as an adult educator, I immediately recognized why I thought the Improvement Kata and Coaching Kata would work together. So why is good learning practice baked into Toyota Kata practice with the Improvement Kata and Coaching Kata duo? I want you to think a little bit about your experience as a learner, maybe a Kata learner, but also at school, maybe as a high school student who was a little resistant to classroom training, perhaps as an adult, what you learned in college, or maybe what you've learned at work, or maybe in your current work. Like, how does your learning experience reflect perhaps the philosophy of learning of those people who organize that learning? And just think about your experience. What did you love or hate about school? When did you feel listened to or not listened to? And how does that translate in your current work? Okay, so why does Kata work? And I think the question is always, to do what? What do we want Kata to do? Well, no news to the Friday Zooms. We want to teach and develop a habit of a deliberate, methodical, curiosity, and hypothesis-driven way to tackle tough challenges together and achieve futures we didn't think possible. So there's a lot there, and I'm going to just kind of share a quick thought on how this works and why it works. So one of the things we used to hear all the time is, isn't that coaching kata just a bunch of questions that you ask? And isn't that why it's easy? Well, of course, it is a kind of Socratic teaching method. You ask the questions in order to provoke thinking, because we are all about the thinking. So yeah, the question part is important. And in particular, the not preceding the question with answers and then asking for the same answer back when you ask the question. That's important. But also there's a theory of knowledge or a theory of learning built into the kata, which is called constructivism. And just like it sounds, constructivism is about constructing, like it's about building your own knowledge. Okay, so if you have kids in school or have had kids in school since you graduated from school, you may have noticed how much they do projects. Like, we didn't always do projects. We did worksheets and we did tests and stuff like that. But there's a lot of projects now, and that is based on the idea of testing theories and building your own connections so that you remember stuff. And how do we do that? We do that individually, perhaps as a learner, and in keeping track of what's going on. What are we learning? What are we learning about? As a learner, you're literally constructing knowledge. And in this case, I just wanted to point out the pink at the side about what did she learn in this particular challenge so far about understanding the direction of challenge? Which ones of her learnings relate to grasping current condition? Target condition, you can see there the green, and then experimenting, lots of different things. And then at the far right, what did she learn about the overall, about the improvement kata? But besides learning by yourself, it is built into the kata that you learn in groups, right? You learn at least with you and your coach. You might be learning with you and the team members who gather your data and run your process. You might be learning you, your coach, and a second coach. So all that learning and reflecting adds up to building knowledge that sticks. And the thing about the coaching conversation is, not only does it help you construct and remember what you're learning, but through what we call deepening questions the coach asks, you can get further through talking to yourself, if you will, to explaining to your coach, talking to your coach. You might get further in understanding deeper into your process, or even reflecting on yourself and how you're coming to the learning than you would by yourself. So these are 4 ways, in my opinion, that the improvement kata and the practice of kata with a coach helps you construct and remember new knowledge. If you don't remember it, it never happened. So let's talk a little bit more about the coach. So we say that constructivism, works better with a facilitating teacher or coach. And that means somebody who's trying to make it easier for you to get where you're trying to go. So this is the classic picture from Mike's book for the learner, the storyboard, and the coach. And what is the coach doing? The coach is focusing on understanding your thinking and how to enrich it or enhance it. The coach, of course, is always looking for the learning zone. And this puts, as Mark says often, student into the role of teacher. So the learner is teaching and explaining what they're thinking and what they're seeing to the coach. And that is a proven way to synthesize learning and to come up with insights, is to teach it to somebody. And of course, the coach is looking for ways to offer less support over time as the learner becomes more familiar, more adept, more competent in the processes and what to do when. So that's another thing we get from education that tells me this is a constructivist thing. The opposite of this, which I like to explain because you may have experienced it in your life, is called the banking view of learning. And that's where your instructor, your coach, your teacher, your facilitator actually knows exactly what they want you to learn because it's already been written down in a book. All knowledge is here. We already know it. And the teacher's job is to somehow, push that learning over to you and bank it in your brain so that then you have it. This is the kind of learning, teacher at the front, answers are known, that some of us rebelled against in school. And the idea of teaching as banking or learning as being banked, how it happens to you, not with you, is one that a lot of us have rebelled against. And that's the opposite of the kata, right? That's exactly what we're not doing, is saying, I know all the answers. I knew them before you started talking, and I'm just waiting to tell you what they are. So the other thing that's built into the improvement kata and coaching kata that makes me applaud so much is that it has built in the structure for unlearning what we already thought was the best way to approach a problem and for undoing some of our behaviors over time. And I like to quote this book, The ABCs of How We Learn. It is a graduate level university book that basically distills all the knowledge of what we know, scientifically proven approaches, and how they work to learning. And in those chapters on unlearning, which is, oh, wait, I had a concept or I had a pattern that I have learned and loved and worked for me up until now, but now I have a different thing I have to learn. And we run into this all the time with teaching people who are already improvement experts about how to be a coach. So the proven path for unlearning something like that has three parts. Precision of thought. The coach's role is to help hone in the way we talk about something or the kind of data that we have. So we are as precise as we can be. And I've seen many of you coach and heard you ask for, what is the number there? What does that mean? Can you show me a picture of that thing? Like, let's get precise about what we're talking about. Alternate concept. So, if you were a CI leader and now you're supposed to be a coach facilitator, we offer pretty detailed instructions on how to experience the alternate concept. And the other one is time. This one gets overlooked a lot, but unlearning and undoing something that is a habit takes time. So I think that's all built into the kata. The other thing that is built in that's so powerful is reflection. Reflecting on what we're learning is outlined in many places in education, but then I'm highlighting Doug Lemoff because we love Doug Lemoff in the Kata Coaching Dojo. And he has this particular book, 42 Rules for Getting Better at Getting Better. And so some of the ways those cross with the improvement kata and coaching kata is in the coaching kata, the time on each question. So we know if you want to get better at coaching, you might want to run chart how long you spend on each question and see if you are in fact spending more time on the step, what was learned from the step, and the obstacles than you are on understanding current condition or hearing your improver talk about the target condition. Another one is who is talking. So you could get better at your talk time versus the improver's talk time. In a 20-minute coaching cycle, I don't want to be talking more than 3 or 4 minutes. Like, I don't want to dominate in any way the airtime. Also, a lot of coaches focus on the bookends of the coaching cycle, or what happens before you start with what is your challenge or what is your target condition question, and what happens after, how quickly can we go and see, because those places are where the relationship is built, and those are places you can get better. You can get better at keeping them precise, or you can get better at not cutting the learner off if they have something to talk about. So I'm just going to go through these, the specific of the learning zone. So as a coach, you're going to look and reflect on, am I stepping over the threshold of knowledge? You can only build new knowledge on the edge of what you already know. And so when we're talking about the threshold of knowledge, I always think personally that the threshold of knowledge is usually about the process and the obstacles. And that as a coach, I'm also looking at the learning zone of the learner. Is this learner, even though it's the 40th learner I've ever met, what's different about them? What makes them different? And how can I pay attention to the way they talk or the way their face moves that tells me about their learning zone? Your actual words compared to what you intend to say as a coach. Actually, in the dojo, we focus a lot on the actual words you say, and you could track that and get better at it. And finally, the progress of you and your improver on scientific thinking, being methodical, being data-driven. I have to say a lot of coaches start being very methodical and data-driven and have to learn the people part. Other people come in and they're like, oh, right, we could collect data on that. We could be more methodical in current conditions. So anyway, this is built into the kata, reflecting on all of these different aspects and trying to get, and if you have a second coach, trying to get better at those for sure. Finally, the idea of cognitive behavioral therapy and habits is also built into the Improvement Kata Coaching Kata Duo. Cognitive behavioral therapy tells us if you want to make it a routine, attach a trigger to it. So what is it, the everyday, small step over time, big results of the kata is built right in there. We do it every day. We do it for a short time. We have either a time trigger or I walk up to you, that's your trigger. Or I ask the question, what is your challenge? What is your target condition? And that's how we know we're going to start. Of course, tracking data, it's kind of new that people are tracking data in their everyday life a lot, at least from what I see from people who are under 30. They have lots of data apps that they track about their life. And we've built into the kata that we will track meaningful data in various ways and then learn from that data. And finally, CBT and habits tell us there should be a reward. We talk about the dopamine hit of the pleasure of, oh, I learned something, or oh, I'm getting somewhere, or oh, I made a target condition, and how we should celebrate those. I think the reward in kata is often through the relationship and the progress that people are making. Finally, you can see, as I've been saying, that the improvement kata, the everyday short conversation, the structure of the steps, and even what we do at the different steps, and very importantly, the reflection built in, the structure of the coaching kata through planning and executing, and the reflection built in there for the coach. These are all things that are why kata works. That's why it works as a learning system, but you have to make the system work and do it the way it's said. We like to say sometimes it works even if you do it poorly, but if you follow those minimum things of doing it daily and keeping things precise and reflecting, all of what we know about brains and learning tell us that this will work. And I think everybody here has the experience of having it work. So now you know why kata works from an education point of view.